At exactly 2:13 a.m., the lights went out inside Beton Max prison. The alarm system failed. Cameras froze. And in the morgue, inside a zipped-up body bag, something moved. In less than 4 hours, the African continent would wake up to a headline that sounded like fiction. Dead man escapes from maximum security. But this wasn't a movie. This was real. This is the story of a man who faked his death, escaped one of Africa's most brutal prisons during a riot, and disappeared into legend without leaving a single trace. His name was Toba Ikenna, but in Beton Max, they called him the Ghost. Now let's get to the real story. Toba arrived at Beton Max in 2016. No trial transcripts, no public record, no visitors. He was placed directly into solitary confinement. Cell 42. A concrete box, just 6 feet by 9, buried in a wing known as the dead zone. The guards joked that he never blinked. Some said he was a former soldier, others whispered darker things, that he had once made a judge vanish. But nobody really knew who Toba was. He barely spoke, didn't join any prison factions, and yet somehow, he got everything he needed. A broken watch, antiseptic ointment, a paperback copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. In a place where nothing moved without permission, Toba moved in silence. Over time, the other inmates stopped trying to understand him. They simply gave him a name: Ghost. Beton Max prison is buried deep in the heart of West Africa. Built during the colonial era, it was never meant to survive the present. Overcrowded, underfunded, and run by a warden known more for fear than for order. Warden Balogun kept control by turning inmates into tools. Gang leaders became wardens. Medical supplies disappeared into the black market. Corruption wasn't just tolerated, it was engineered. And in that chaos, men like Toba learned to vanish without leaving their cells. The prison was built on 3 layers, 2 for inmates and 1 forgotten layer beneath. The old colonial tunnels, sealed after an escape decades ago. Most inmates thought it was just a myth. Toba didn't. He spent years observing guard routines, shift rotations, backup generators. Not for a riot, not for a takeover, but for something far simpler: disappearance. In cell 39 was an old inmate they called Pastor. Once a preacher, now a rambling shadow of a man, talking to walls, shaking in the night. Most thought he was insane. But Toba listened. Pastor whispered about the old escape tunnels, sealed off after a riot in 1974. He claimed he once mapped them before being caught. He would chant, "The dead are the only ones who leave Beton Max." And that phrase stayed with Toba. If only the dead could leave, then death had to be faked. His escape wouldn't come with keys or guns. It would come in the shape of a body bag. It began with a cough, a subtle limp, a daily complaint about chest pain. Toba started building a file: symptoms, prescriptions, fake fainting spells. He infected himself with low-dose bacteria smuggled through the prison pharmacy. A risk that could have killed him, but to Toba, it was part of the plan. After 3 months, the prison doctor marked him as critical. Within weeks, he was officially declared dead. He'd bribed a nurse, offering the only thing he had left of value: gold fillings he'd torn from his own molars. In return, she helped him swap his vitals chart. On October 19th, 2022, at 6:42 p.m., Toba Ikenna was wheeled out of Beton Max in a zipped black bag. No pulse, no breath, just silence. 23 minutes after his death, chaos broke out. A kitchen fire, set intentionally. Within minutes, inmates were rioting. Smoke filled the corridors, guards abandoned their posts. Amidst the chaos, the morgue was left unattended. Inside the bag, Toba waited, his hands shaking, his breath held for hours. When the time was right, he used a hidden surgical blade, smuggled in weeks earlier, to slice open the lining. He slipped into the shadows, moving through the lower levels toward the old chapel basement. And from there, into the tunnels no one believed existed. For the first time in 6 years, he saw the stars. Toba vanished into the night, across fields, through swamps, hitching rides in funeral trucks, sleeping in drainage canals. In a small border town, he met a contact, Zainab, a hacker who owed him a favor from years ago. She wiped his identity clean, created a new one, and helped him disappear. Again. Meanwhile, back at Beton Max, a full investigation had begun. Warden Balogan was suspended. Weeks later, he was found hanging in his office. Suicide, they claimed. But his final report never surfaced. In the Ministry of Justice, a classified file known as Operation Night Market began circulating. It detailed how prisoners, especially dissidents, were secretly trafficked across borders to serve as mercenaries in foreign wars. Toba had discovered the operation years earlier. That's why he was arrested. Not for a crime, but to be silenced. But someone inside the system helped him. A low-level guard named Daniel. He vanished the same week Toba escaped. Together, they exposed a network of corruption that led to top politicians. But they didn't go public. Not yet. 3 years later, a journalist in Abidjan received a brown envelope. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a USB stick. It contained one video. Toba sat in the dark. His face was tired, his voice calm. "I didn't run because I was guilty," he said. "I ran because they buried the truth with me." He named names, ministers, judges, generals. He dropped documents, real ones, contracts, transfer orders, secret memos. Within 72 hours, 3 high-ranking officials resigned. 2 disappeared. It turned out, Toba's escape was never just about freedom. It was a mission. A secret fund, $1 million, was transferred from an offshore account to a charity for families of trafficked prisoners. It was his last move. And then, once again, silence. No more videos, no confirmed sightings. Just a myth. A man who died, but kept moving. Today, no one can say with certainty if Toba Ikena ever truly existed. Some believe he was a ghost story, a symbol created to scare the corrupt. Others say he's still out there, watching from the shadows. But in the heart of Beton Max, cell 42 remains sealed, and the body that was buried was never found. In a world where the innocent are silenced and the guilty thrive, sometimes the dead are the only ones who can speak. This was the story of the man buried alive, who came back to bury the truth.